is tending to a matter in his office, so he'll be with us shortly. We'll call the meeting to order. All the town board members are present. We're waiting Supervisor LaFountain. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of August 13th meeting. I have a motion to approve.
I'll move the minutes with that one amendment.
Second.
Okay. Minutes will be approved. I do not have indication as to any monthly reports that are due. We have no public hearings tonight. And we have two guests on for 7 o'clock. Let's start with the Golden Coin Exchange. Mr. Carey, you're up. Come on. It's like church, you can come as close as you want.
Y'all got me kind of far.
If you'd like to just, here comes Mr. Costello. It's our understanding that you're looking to go into the current Golden Coin Exchange and kind of swap into their operation there. So we have received your materials, your application, and Kaz, would you like to just jump in and introduce the issue, the matter?
Thanks. Yeah, you met Sean. Sean is taking over the existing coin operation, 1833 Penfield Road. You've worked there for a period of time beside that already.
I worked at his child life.
Okay, so you're part of
Studying.
that group that...
Right.
Yeah, so your intent now is to take this area over, run it exactly as it was from
Yes.
day one. There's no signage change, there's no exterior changes,
Just a management change?
just a management change basically. And actually, I think in terms of ownership, you'll own it?
Yes.
Yeah, so...
Hours will stay the same for now?
Hours will be 10 to 5, Monday through Friday, and Saturday, right now, I'm just seeing how traffic and how past history have been. I
Okay.
talked to the guy that was manager before. He said it was, I think he used to do it from 10 to 3. The other person said 10 to 5. So as I see how business goes and what's more productive, it'll be one of the two. If it's worth it to stay open later, of course, I'm going to stay open later. If not, then I'm going to cut it 10 to 3, and Sundays closed.
Close on Sundays, okay.
Yes.
And how many employees?
Just meet myself and one other employee for now. Depends on business. If it gets real busy, add employees, of course. So usually there'll be most likely one employee on at all times. 2 if it's needed.
And Jim, this seems to certainly fit in with our streamlining process that we do for
It does.
businesses that are coming in. We have kind of a process that we try to get people in quicker. If you're doing the same business or a similar operation, we don't have you go through the same steps that we do for a brand-new business.
Okay.
It's a streamlining operation, so that helps you out in terms of getting up and running sooner
Okay.
by coming through that process.
When did you hope to open?
Looking with the young lady that he already had in there, possibly Tuesday.
This is Mr. Carey, I think you've met him.
How you doing?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
change in operations, just kind of a
Paper.
paper change.
Yeah.
Wish you luck.
Yeah, give fingerprint and all that stuff for the jury stuff. Business.
Right.
The, as Paula stated, I mean, you don't have to go through a public hearing process. You still have to get a special permit, which we'll issue you.
Okay.
We'll pay the fee for the permit. I know the site's been inspected by the fire marshal, and it's totally in compliance, so I think we're all set there. So it's just a matter of me processing that permit for you, making sure the board's happy with it, and then actually, well, we're getting kind of tight, but in essence, it could have stayed open the whole time anyways, because it's the same management team that was there
Right.
from the beginning, so.
Yeah, nothing's changing.
I'll get that out to you as quickly as possible so you can open up as you need to.
Okay.
All right.
Signage all the same?
Everything, yeah.
No change.
Got it.
And any
Okay.
questions for us?
Let's say during holiday season, want to stay open later. Let's say till like 7.
You
Do I
have
have
to-
to come before the board to stay open
No,
later?
you have the right to stay open until midnight, actually, in that zoning district.
Won't be doing that, but.
No, I understand, but you do have that right. I mean, you're choosing your hours of operation because you can't work every minute of every day.
Right.
But you're entitled to stay open from 6 AM to midnight on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, that was my only
So,
question.
no, the board's just concerned about intensity of scope and, you know, how many parking spaces you might have to eat up at any given time. But that appears to have worked out well for you in the beginning. So.
Okay,
And I would just encourage you, and I've said this before to a lot of applicants, if you have any questions, you're just not sure, just call Jim. That's what Jim's here for.
okay,
Yeah.
So it's better to know ahead of time versus after the fact,
true.
so.
Yeah, and we're really committed to that Four Corners district. We've had a lot of new businesses popping up there, so bring your appetite. There's a lot of places to eat around there.
Trying to lose some of that
Well,
appetite.
you're gonna have difficulty, you're gonna have a little difficulty. So welcome to Penfield.
Thank you.
All right, good luck.
All right, thank you,
I'll
board.
talk to you soon.
All right.
Next, we have Tim Stevens and Mike Detmer. Come on up, guys. And the guy who calls me all the time. Right here. I just met Tim the other day. Tim came to visit me. We've been going back and forth with telephone calls for the last month or so. We had a chance to come to visit me the other day. I thought it was a good idea to bring him to the board. He wanted to come. And he's looking at taking over the church that Mark owns across from the pizzeria, and I'll let you go through the process as to what you'd like to do.
Okay. We would like to open a distillery in the church, manufacturing spirits, mostly moonshine. It seems to be one of the growing trends in New York and actually across the nation. So there's a lot of craft breweries opening up and craft distilleries. So we looked at the location. There's nothing really in the immediate area. It's a great area. Four Corners is great traffic. Found a location with Mark, and we'd like to eventually open. Probably we're looking at about a year from now. By the time we go through licensing with the liquor authority and all that. You know, I put together a business plan here. I didn't know how many copies. I only brought 4 copies, so I didn't know how many people would be here. But you know, open every day is what we're looking at. Around 12 to 9, roughly, business hours. 10 to 10 Friday and Saturday.
Could you talk a little bit about the actual operation of the business, what you're really intending to do in terms of?
Sure. So we'd be distilling the moonshine. We would have downstairs a retail environment where people can purchase it already bottled. We would have a tasting room upstairs on the balcony, along with the brewing equipment. You can take this copy too. If you need another copy. Tasting room upstairs, 2 tasting bars with a couple of people up there working with patrons that come in. We'd have a hostess that would greet them when they come in, just like a normal winery you'd visit. You'd you know, decide what tastings you want to do, pay for your tastings, go upstairs. We'd also be doing light food fare, pub style food, paninis, chicken fingers, quesadillas, stuff like that. And outdoor deck during the warmer months, people could sit out there. We might have a couple of tables out there. People could enjoy panini and a drink. We'd also have, you know, Pepsi products and water and stuff like that.
Where would you think the deck would be?
There's already a deck on the front of the
Is there?
church, yeah.
Mhm.
So there, future plans, if needed, we would like to maybe expand that deck a little bit, but it's a pretty good size right now, so.
So if I wanted to just go to your place and spend 3 or 4 hours just drinking moonshine, is that something you'd allow, or is that something that you're?
No, we're gonna not encourage people. We don't want a bar environment. We're not gonna have a long bar where people can sit and just order drinks. It's gonna be if you want to sit down and have something to eat in a, you know, 4 to 6 ounce glass. Our moonshine isn't also the typical moonshine. It's a pre-mixed in different flavors. We experiment with 9 or 10 flavors right now, and it's it's like any mixed drink. It's not the 190 proof stuff you buy in the, you know.
It's not what you see on TV.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Tell them what proof it is.
It's about 70 proof, roughly, so like, you know, maybe 30%, 60 proof, 70 proof, depending on the flavor. Some of them are stronger than others. So, like I said, it's just like ordering, you know, gin and tonic or, you know, something like that.
The actual distilling process itself, as it relates to the neighbors, in terms of odors or discharges of liquids or anything from the site, can you talk a little bit about that?
There wouldn't be any liquids, hopefully, unless something spilled. Odors, during the fermentation process of the corn, it's really, it's like a sweet corn odor, and it's very minimal. And that can be, you know, vented outside very easily, or we can control it. You know, you could even put a charcoal filter or something so that it would control on that, but it's not offensive. It's not like, you know, you hear about the sauerkraut festivals and stuff where it's offensive odors or anything like that. It's more of a sweet smell. So
Where are you currently operating? It sounds as if you have experience.
we're currently operating out of his garage.
Typical moonshine.
Yeah.
In Wayne County, it's different.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
That's where the real stuff is. That's up in the garage.
Glass jugs.
Yeah, mason
Covered
jars.
nice in
Yeah.
mason jars.
Yeah.
From the garage to the church.
Yeah,
Got it.
we're yeah, and you know, currently what we do is we do tasting parties at our friends' houses. That's how we actually started a couple years ago, just, you know, making a recipe for ourselves, and we made the typical apple pie, and that everybody likes, apple pie moonshine, and then
Right.
summertime rolled around, we did some lemon, and then you know, just had people over and they liked it and asked, you know, if they could get it, and it just started rolling, and then we started experimenting with other flavors, and we do like, you know, if somebody has a 40th birthday party, you know, we'll go over and do a tasting, and if people want to order it, we legally can't sell it, but if they want to give us the money to make it for them, whatever the cost is, you know, we'll do that for them, and so on. And
So-
people keep asking for it, and just keeps going.
Okay. So along with the operation that you would have on 5 Mile Line Road, would you have then vehicles parked there that would then carry the product to various tastings or parties?
Well, yes. I mean, we're looking at around 7 employees total, and so, you know, I think there's 30-something spots maybe there. We would have, hopefully, we also want to get into the liquor stores in the area, Lisa's Liquor Barn, and, you know, so on and so forth, Century. So we would want something to carry the product there, deliver it, and also, yeah, we're hoping to continue with tasting parties, but we prefer them to come to us.
Right.
And book a private party by appointment. You know, we don't want people, you know, we talked about if we book a party for a birthday party and they want to go around like a wine tour, and they're going to do a tour type of thing, we want them to be we want to be the first stop, not the last stop, because, you know, we don't want to deal with anyone who's going to be, you know, in that state of mind, overserved in that state of mind.
Right.
And so, you know, they'd be early appointments.
So in addition to the state liquor license, you'd also probably have to work with the Monroe County Health Department, just because it's a food process.
It's a food process, yep. There's going to be numerous inspections throughout the next, you know, if all this goes through the process by both the state and federal, and you have to get your jars approved, your labels approved. There's a lot to all equipment. The license, to get the license through New York State, it's a 3-year license for $26,000.
It's a lot of jugs.
That's a lot of jugs, yeah.
So as far as obviously you're gonna make, you intend to make significant internal changes. What about externally on the building?
Externally, just painting. Hopefully, we're not, you know, we like the aesthetics of the church. You know, we've got it called the Stained Glass Distillery. We love the stained glass in it. We want to keep everything looking the way it is. Just, you know, we're gonna talk to the landlord about painting it. And,
He's pretty good at that.
yeah.
We need to figure out a way too, we want to preserve the stained glass that's already there, and some of it's in pretty rough shape.
Yeah.
So how we go about doing that needs some more investigation. And, but we basically want to keep it as is.
We do appreciate that, as Mark, as he knows, the Historic Preservation Board has been trying to do that now for years, and they understand it's been a tough situation in terms of keeping people in the building because of energy efficiency and all sorts of other issues, but we'll work with you to get to that point.
Yeah, you know, and right now with the New York State grants, if you use a lot of New York products, there's a lot of grants out there. For if you buy the corn from a New York farmer, if you buy the fruit that you use from a New York farmer, there's a lot of incentives for that. So that would, you know, help. And there's a lot of energy grants out there as well. So
In your current occupations?
we're both
Completely different.
we're both licensed opticians. We do eyeglasses.
So you
and
still-
contacts.
So the
you
first
can
half of your
test
lives
the
trying to get everybody's
Yeah.
site in line, and now you're.
And now we're gonna mess it
second
up.
half
And now we're gonna mess it all up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your volume? What is your volume that under your license, under your permit, that you're allowed to distill?
Well, there's, that's a great question, and I don't really know that. We haven't gotten to that part of in the licensing at all. We're looking at, hopefully, there's 2 different stills that we would have in location. One of them is 50 gallons and one of them is 100 gallons. The 100-gallon would be ideal and nice, so we could do one run and have all that inventory on hand.
Sure.
But I don't know what the restrictions are gonna be yet on the licensing.
Got it.
Um,
And then there'll be, I'm guessing, there'll be probably a maximum amount, so you can only run whatever that number is, 100 gallon runs on an annual basis to stay within the permit.
Yeah, I think I'm sure it's more than that, because
Yeah.
if we do get into the liquor stores in the area, I
Sure.
mean, Black Button Distilling, I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, they open near the public market. You know, they're already in the liquor stores and producing quite a bit number of cases of gin, vodka, moonshine, all that sort of stuff. So I'm thinking that it's a pretty high volume, and you know, I would love to meet that volume, and whatever the restrictions are, I'd love to max out at that, but.
Sure.
Yeah, but I don't know the specifics yet.
I was just more curious about the building, the layout. It's not clear in your business plan. Are you taking the whole building? The whole?
The church
Yeah, I
part
know,
of
but
it,
there's
not
that-
the back portion, not the addition.
Not the
part,
addition, just
right.
the.
Right now, we're
and-
talking, yeah, strictly that church
Yeah,
front portion.
and it has the tasting bar in there, but it doesn't say how many people would you see? Is it gonna be a special part for a party room, or is it gonna be all big open, and how many people would you foresee being there at a time?
Yeah, I don't know what the occupancy, fire code occupancy and so on, but I can't imagine we'd have more than, I mean, there's not gonna be seating at the tasting bar. It'd be like a winery when you walk in, you just kind of walk up to the
Stand.
bar, stand there. Our tasting bar, we're picturing two tasting bars upstairs with 2 servers at each one. So, you know, I can't imagine maybe on a Friday or Saturday night, maybe 20 people at each tasting bar total. And then,
If you have these parties,
yeah,
would that be a separate area?
that would be,
for-
we would like to have a separate, like a banquet room or something. I don't have that in the plan, because that was, you know, we've just kind of thrown that idea around. And maybe if we do expand down the road into the back of the church, we could do that. But that's not, you know, right now, we're just talking strictly the church
And
part
then you
of
got
it.
the food, you were mentioning food, and
Yeah.
you're gonna have a kitchen in there?
Yeah, there's already a
There's
little
already a
kitchen in the
kitchen
back
there.
corner, but obviously it's not a commercial kitchen, but there is a
Right.
kitchen there. So yeah, we keep that same space, basically. With light food fare that we're talking about, a one-page menu type of thing, we don't need a lot of space. It's like a fryer and a grill and,
But you'd have tables?
yes.
You will have to meet the state or the county health department's requirements for food service, and I know we need 3 sinks and all sorts of other things that have to be dealt with, but.
Hopefully you
we'll work
can-
with the health department. Yeah, I'm sure. Regulations, that I'm saying, so
Yeah,
she'll have to work with them to put all that together.
yep. Yeah, I mean, you know, we're looking to have people come in, have a good time, do a tasting, just like any winery, maybe grab something to eat and then leave, not hang around, you know, not spend hours there. You know, we did put in there future plans, during the summer, maybe have some live entertainment on the deck if we expand the deck. I mean, we're talking way down the road, but, you know, Fairport Brewing, it was just last week, they had a band out there, people were sitting around, little fire pits on the, you know, enjoying a glass of beer, and, you know, it was kind of a nice environment, so, maybe, but I don't really know.
Okay.
In talking to Tim the other day, I suggested he come tonight just to determine whether or not there was enough interest on the board's part to pursue an
Absolutely.
application. And if there is.
I almost brought samples.
If, no, but if there is, you really need to go through and put together a detailed outline of exactly what you really do want to do, because one thing, the board has to know what the intent is there, so there's no guessing afterwards. And secondly, you want to do that because you don't want to have to keep coming back to the board every time you want to modify the project.
Yep.
to Get to where you need to be.
We'll
so.
also know what approvals you need from the various agencies, so you're not held up.
Yeah, and they're gonna want, all this information from the board through a resolution of approval in order to get your liquor license and everything
Right.
else. So, the more you can tell the board about what the project's gonna be on a day-to-day basis, the better off it'll be.
Okay.
I can tell you that I'll be the contractor on the job for him, so I was gonna put the kitchen in for him, where the kitchen that Jeff put in, and then the tasting bar. The church is really gonna stay the way it is. Like the upstairs is where the tasting bars are, and you know how you have those two overhangs on both sides?
Right.
So the top, you have the stairs that go up, all they're gonna do is put a bench on both sides, and that's it really. Then they're gonna just clean it up and paint it, and, so there's really nothing going upstairs. And then the bottom, all I really have to do down there is, like you said, put the 3 base sinks in and
Yeah, and I
set the
think
kitchen up.
that's a good point, and I think the board will wanna see the interior design of what's gonna happen, how it's gonna lay out. And I don't know, under the state code and ADA requirements, I don't know that if you're going to put exclusively the tasting bars upstairs.
We're gonna have a small one downstairs too.
Okay, that'll sound.
That's what I was just
very
mentioning.
good.
Yeah, they already talked about that.
Yeah, you gotta
And we
be
have
very
the ADA coming up the side already.
Yep.
In the front and the back for the
Right.
emergency.
Yeah.
Because they made us do that. Because there was a state agency in there, and they were very critical of all the exits and all the hallways. So really, they're really not structurally changing anything, so all the sprinklers and everything are gonna stay exactly the way they are also. And the other nice thing was, they're a good tenant, because church is over before they open. So like the church really only uses the church
On Sunday.
on Sunday, that's when the business is, and then he does just a little bit of stuff on Tuesdays. So it was kind of a good fit, like that state agency I had in there. I have to be really critical of who I get in there because of the parking with the church, because Pastor Joe has been there like 6, 7 years now, and I don't foresee him leaving.
And you got a great relationship, and it's a nice fit. I mean, that's one of the things that we certainly take a look at as a board,
Yeah.
is trying to do the fit, that you're well aware of.
Yeah, this idea came up from a place originally I visited a few years ago in Pittsburgh called Churchworks Brewery, and it's a old Roman Catholic church, and you walk in, and I mean it's 5 times the size of this church, but it's, you walk in and they still have the altar, and all their brewing equipment is behind stained glass up on the altar, and they took all the old church pews and cut them into booths, and it's fantastic, and it's
It's the church
like
you grew
a
up
line out the door. So.
It's the church I wanted to go to.
So if you're ever in Pittsburgh, check it out. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
absolutely.
And you can always, you can tell your spouse, I'm going to church for a little bit, I'll be right back.
She'll know that's wrong.
That would raise red flags.
I've known him for a number of years that I know that's wrong. I never pictured you, Mark, with pizza on one side and moonshine on the other potentially, so I mean, it's kind of an interesting,
I really got excited about it, and they actually, these guys came down to talk to me on, what was it, Monday night? Monday night, and I was so busy, I said, oh, you guys gotta come down to the lake, because we're working on the cottage. So they come down to the lake about 8 o'clock, and we were eating dinner, and I let the kids kind of get involved in it, and they were all talking about it, and believe it or not, it seems pretty exciting, because I was just in Gatlinburg. What's the name of that distillery?
Old Smoky.
I went to Old Smoky because these guys were talking about it, and it's pretty neat. I don't know if you guys have ever been to one of these, but you walk in, and it's just a lot of energy, and it was like the same thing, tall ceilings. You see the distillery there, and then people come in, and they just want to come in to kind of see it and taste it. So it's like, I think these guys are more thinking about like doing, what did you call them, engagement parties, divorce parties, birthday parties. So I mean, I think I liked it because it was more of a, I mean, it's distillery. When he first said distillery, I'm like, no way. I'm thinking, but then I started to
It's more of an
understand.
event
I started to understand what they said, and then I started to sip some of it. And I was like, it's pretty good. And actually, the more you sip, the better the idea sounds. So I don't know,
I'll take your word
I don't know if
for it.
there's like some kind of trick involved.
Why I almost brought samples.
But I have one more thing that I would like to add. Now, I spent like $15,000 to save that bell on the top. So I thought every time something exciting happened, that person would be able to ring the bell.
Let's not get crazy.
We-
That
we-
bell could be ringing all night.
Like the tip bell.
Yeah, well, we talked about having a punch card, and every time you come and you buy a jar, you get, and once you complete your card or you've tasted every flavor we have or something, you could one pull on the
I
bell.
was thinking, like Applebee's, you get 10 of them, you get a free one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
okay.
But
Well, we do have that. We do currently.
I
we do
just
that.
think it would be a nice little gimmick that it would be like, come down to the distillery and get to ring the bell.
get your bell rung.
That's how that works.
But we were just all kind of brainstorming and talking about it. That was one of the things.
Well, I'm certainly intrigued by the idea in terms of especially maintaining that structure the way it is.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, get the
it's
stained glass
much-
windows, you can take care of
Yeah.
that.
I think, and two things jumped out at me, and we had mentioned to the other gentleman in terms of the historic Four Corners district. I think there's probably great opportunities for you with the restaurants that are in the area, who are, really excited to be there and kind of team up for events or causes. And also you mentioned farmers. We have a rich agricultural history
Right.
here. And how fantastic would it be to hook up with some Penfield farmers
Yep.
and take advantage of those opportunities you mentioned.
Yeah,
in
and it's
terms
a
of your
complete
product.
process when you hook up with farmers. You buy the corn from them for the initial fermentation. After the fermentation, you're left with mash basically, which can be sold back to the farmers or given to them for free to use for feed and different things. So currently, Black Button and Finger Lakes Distilling down in Burdett, New York, is doing that with
Yeah, I
local
think-
farmers.
And Kaz would be able to hook you up with our
Oh, sure.
local farmers,
Yeah,
our friends who
absolutely.
Yeah.
could benefit from it. You might see them at the tastings as well.
Get you all the corn you need.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
Okay, good. Board, other questions, comments? All right, you'll work with Jim for the next step to move forward with the process. Good luck with all the work that you have, especially with the federal government.
Thank you.
That in itself is going to be a monumental task.
Yes.
So good
Yes.
luck with that. And thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Absolutely, thank you.
And
Good luck.
Jim will keep us posted along the way as to your progress and.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
So we'll keep Mr.
Talk to you soon.
Mr. Crane here with us, so we'll move to action items, law and finance, and the first item is picking up where we left off our last work session, talking about Mark's Pizzeria site plan and update.
Thank you, Tony. There has been a lot of activity going on since the last time we met with you with relationship to parking issues as they relate to the site and also to CNB, Canandaigua National. And then also the issue of, Lord, I didn't bring it down. Somebody, do you have it? Your report? Yeah, I'd sent you the report, the recommendations that Chris Lopez had prepared for us. We had met with Mark and with Scott to talk about those recommendations. I did send the recommendations on to the Historic Preservation Board, but I haven't heard from anybody yet. And I will say the reason I haven't is because we've been having problems with our email here. So we're kind of isolated from the rest of the world today, and in the last couple of days, actually. So
Time Warner
Except
Cable.
for Time Warner.
got it. So, as a result, I will be hearing, and we have a meeting coming up fairly quickly here with the board, so we'll be talking about this in great detail. The first thing we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the parking, because that was a major concern to Canandaigua National. And immediately after our meeting, Mark and Scott went out and started redesigning to accommodate their neighbors' concerns, which they did. They initially had a plan where they showed perpendicular parking from 5 Mile Line Road, in an effort to try and get more parking, and actually Jeff Dunaway had initiated a thought process to have diagonal parking on both sides, because the intent was then to have through traffic, because as you know, the county does not want to have in and out there. Mark didn't want it initially, but now the county's saying that they agree with him. We just got an email from Brent Penwarden from the county DOT, praising the fact that the access point is going as far north as it possibly can, so he's supportive of that. I actually got that 2 days ago before our internet went down. Scott then went ahead and, after we met, he went ahead and then he redesigned the parking to go back to a perpendicular state. And actually, Rick Pratt from CNB actually brought up the point. He said, I don't know why Mark would want to limit himself if you were coming in from Liberty or if you were coming in from the area over by Dunkin' Donuts. You could not go back into his parking lot because it's going the wrong way with a diagonal. So it was a good observation on his part. What Scott did do then is he did pull up the parking.
This drawing doesn't show.
And it doesn't show it, but do you have the diagonal? You don't have the diagonal.
No, I didn't do the
All right,
diagonal
so what
one.
he did was he pulled up this, the parking now, and he's going to install additional parking. And Scott, if you could.
Yeah, let me point to it. The latest proposal was to provide some additional stalls in this area here that protrude out in that direction and sidewalk along with that. So, and I think it gained another 4 or 5
Yeah,
stalls.
With 4 spots.
And then we had also played around with it, try to do diagonal to maximize the parking, and I think the comment came back from the CND that was kind of contrary to the way they saw some customers, as you were saying, coming from this direction. So as I recall, the last time we left off, we were going to still keep the one-way up to this particular
Right.
point, then convert to two-way, so this area could be accessed through the two-way coming from that direction.
One of the concerns, well, now I would suspect probably the main concern or the only concern left with CNB at this point in time is that they really didn't like the idea of not having through access back to 5 Mile End Road, because it does put the onus now on all the traffic. Once you come in there, now you've got to go through the CNB property and then back out to Liberty Street or then on to Dunkin' Donuts sites to the west. We're kind of limited now because the DOT really does not want that to be a two-way movement. We're very concerned about traffic trying to bypass there at the intersection of the access point and then going around traffic in our parking area to the east there. So the intent would be to have it go one way for a certain portion halfway into the property, and then have it go two-way. And of course, there would be signage that would identify no entry at this point beyond this point. So I think that'll work. I think the fact that they've gotten 4 or 5 spaces now for Canandaigua National, which they didn't have before, is going to be helpful. I haven't had a chance to see the final plan yet, and I know you've still got to work on it a little bit, but as soon as I get it, we'll send that off to the CNB and let them review it one last time. But they are kind of limited as to what they can do there, just based on the size of the property and the access points on the 5 Mile End Road.
So those are the 4 spots, Jim, that we
Yeah.
added just for
Yeah.
CMB. And what we did actually also is, this is one way here. So what happens is we can't really use those. So I would be putting these 4 in for them at my expense. Paving this, also having this, putting the sidewalk in here. So these bank people could take the sidewalk and tie right into their sidewalk. And then we were gonna tie the sidewalk in like this, but you see how you have to drive around? So these would actually, they would gain 4 spots. And, our guys aren't gonna drive around. And then, he would say, well, what if your customer parks here, Mark? Well, okay, maybe one does park here, but maybe one of his parks there, But now he's got 4.
Additional spots.
I'm really doing these 4 for him, because my customer isn't gonna go like this and then come in here.
Right.
They're not gonna drive around. They're gonna look like bank parking spots.
It's the most
I
remote,
thought-
it's the most remote location on the site to get to the property, to get to the building.
So the bad thing is, though, the only thing bad about it is, we would lose a little bit of green space, but I think, I just was trying to, even though it's gonna cost a little bit more to put the parking spots in, I felt like, at least, I felt like that's the most I can do. There's nothing more that I can do than give them those 4 spots.
You can't absolutely control what people are gonna do anyways.
And you'll have green space there. I mean, it'll be more than there is now. You've got a block building that's going away, and that'll be green. So it's gonna be a better situation than it is.
And I really like the idea of the one-way, because you don't want people driving backwards through there. It's a pain in the neck. You can't make a left-hand turn, it's too hard. And if, once people come in, what I like about it is people come in Liberty, they can park either side. There's plenty of spots in there to park if they come in Liberty. And if they don't come in Liberty and they come in our entrance, they just go out through Liberty.
So that's kind of where we are with the parking. I think that's coming together. I just want to tie everything together with
Sounds
Rick.
reasonable.
The other issue is a little more intriguing, and that is that, as you had requested, when Mark submitted his plans, and as you always do with new construction, we've always done this with new construction, you had requested that Chris Lopez, who's our consultant,
Right.
look at the proposal, make some recommendations as to what he sees. And Chris his intent wasn't to redesign the whole building in terms of what Mark had prepared. Chris was really looking to adhere to the four corner design standards. That was his intent. And as a result, he did prepare a document, and I thought it was important to bring him in tonight just to kind of go through the thought processes as to why he did what he did and how he got there. And I may even invite him, if we can get him in again, to the Historic Preservation Board and go through the process with them too, because I think they need to understand. And before we go through it, I will put a disclaimer in the fact that he did tweak the building a little bit to the point where I think Mark's a little uncomfortable, but is willing to look at the options, but he is uncomfortable with the layout as it relates to the internal functioning of the business. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but I think I wanted you to just go through and kind of give them an idea of what you were trying to accomplish.
Yep, so I'm Chris Lopez, for those of you that don't know me. Jim explained it perfectly. Sometimes architecture, a lot of times architecture can seem very subjective, but fortunately we have a nice document in the standards, so I'm able to review these in a more objective way and review them based on their compliancy with the standards that were developed in 2001. Obviously, this is a very important site here, adjacent to the park, in the center of the Four Corners, so it's a really important piece of the puzzle here in the Four Corners. From a site plan standpoint, I think everything that we just talked about, I'm in agreement with. I met with Mark and Scott, and we talked about that as well. And the siting of the building, I think, is ideal. You want to have the parking behind it and to the north of it, and you want the building to sit adjacent to and act as a backdrop to the park. So from a site plan standpoint, I think it's great. I think the idea of having also up to the zero setback on 5 Mile Line Road makes a lot of sense. Architecturally, after reviewing it, it's less compliant with the Four Corners guidelines. We're really talking more about a storefront type building. And the guidelines outline certain aspects of what that means. It does mean zero setback. It means more of a storefront facade, more transparency, as opposed to the punch windows that are being proposed here. We would even recommend that because of the siting of this building, that even a bay of storefront could potentially be on the northeast and maybe 3 bays on the southeast corners of the building to bring more visibility into the building and visibility out, especially to the south, to the park. So what was proposed, as you can see on the, really it's best to see on the south facade, there's a kind of an arcade that's at the zero setback. It's only about 3 foot wide between the column and the building proper. And that arcade would be along 5 Mile Line. We felt that if you're going to have a covered area of the building, that would make more sense in the south part of the building, which could provide some covered seating and would look out to the park. So in our recommendations, our first sketch A1, shows a building in the same exact footprint of what's proposed, but instead of having this overhang on the east facade, the overhang would be notched to the southeast corner and would allow for 3 types of seatings essentially for the restaurant. One would be indoor seating, second would be covered seating but outdoors, and then the third would be the outdoor seating, which would be adjacent to the park.
And the covered seating would still be on Mark's property?
Correct.
The outdoor dining would then be on the park property?
Correct. So essentially borrowing that arcade space and shifting it to the southeast corner, it so happens that the square footage of the building remains virtually the same to what was proposed. we did talk to Mark. There would be some minor shifts as far as, I feel they're minor, but Mark has more concern about them as far as how the footprint lays out, but I still think that could work. So that's one of the prime suggestions, along with it, as I mentioned, the storefront. And then we also felt that there was an opportunity here for a tower element. Typically, the buildings in the Four Corner Central Core District are two-story massive. This is a one-story proposed building. I think by adding a corner element, or a corner tower element on the southeast corner, as you can see in sketch A2, which would be the 5 Mile Line Road facade, and A3, which would be the view from the park. Corner element that would kind of act as a focal point, not only from being in the park, but also at the Four Corners, create a nice focal point for the Four Corners, as well as announce the entrance into the pizzeria and provide a nice backdrop for signage for Mark's business. It also helps to scale the building up a little bit as you're moving south towards the scale of the other buildings in the Four Corners, and could create a gateway element as you're coming south on 5 Mile Line and kind of announce that you're entering into the Four Corners, the core of the Four Corners. So that's kind of the idea with this tower. It's still only about 25'4", so it's not too much taller than what was proposed initially. And then the other aspect of it is kind of simplicity of design, and that's stated in the design guidelines, and we really believe that's appropriate to be very simple. I think the materials that were proposed by Mark are right on. So we didn't really, we think the proposed materials of brick and cement clapboard siding and windows, although we think the windows should be probably larger, aesthetically I think are in keeping with the district standards. So those are the three main things: shifting the building so it's at zero setback, providing ample storefront, and then perhaps a tower element, and simplifying the architecture.
And one of the things we looked at, Mark had committed to doing an historical perspective. We wouldn't go into that part of it yet, but the key was we were looking at doing it on the north side of the building, because the north face of the building was pretty plain. And actually, in discussions the other day, because of what's happening with landscaping on the south side, that was initially where Chris was putting it. That will all be landscaped on the south side of the park there. So that would obviously not work. We did talk about moving that to the north side, which will then start to break up that massive effect of the north side of the building. And I think, that's something that Mark had already proposed to do, so that's not a big issue. And I guess the question I have is there a way to incorporate your proposal in such a manner that it doesn't impact the floor plan, or significantly impact the floor plan that Mark has put together to efficiently operate his business?
I mean, I don't think it affects the floor plan flow significantly. Then again, I don't run a pizzeria, so it's really, I am an architect though, so I looked at it, and I didn't think, we talked a little bit about this at the meeting, and there were some concerns, especially about the entrance in the northeast corner and how that service area works, and I'd be happy to work with Mark with this concept to see if it could be something that he feels would not impact negatively on the way he operates the business. But again, our proposal is not to change the floor plan. It's not, we're reviewing based on how aesthetically the building should fit contextually into the Four Corners. So, and with respect to that, like I said, we didn't really suggest to reinvent the wheel here. If you look at the first sketch, the floor plan is fairly similar to what was proposed. The main dining room gets a little longer and narrower, but you're also adding this outdoor seating area that wasn't there before. And also by adding all this transparency of the storefront, the space will feel a lot larger than instead of having smaller punched openings. So that's another aspect of it that we think would be positive.
Just out of curiosity, did anyone down there have a floor plan of the original?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't think I've seen a copy of that, and I was under the impression that the interior of the building had not changed between designs. I think I asked that question
The interior of
2
the
weeks
building
ago.
has not changed.
Well, then we're talking about,
It's changed.
right, I mean, we're
interior?
talking about floor plan
If he
changes, so.
changes, if you change it, it changes.
This was the original?
It would be changed
That's
with the
what
new
was
proposal.
submitted to me, and then this
Okay.
is what, so what we're saying is, instead of this area that's covered,
Okay,
that be relocated to here, that looks out to the park.
all right, so I see, so you just kind of cut back just a touch here, but otherwise the service is still in the northeast.
Yeah, I mean, in
corner.
general, the general
Alright.
layout is still,
So Mark, Scott, what were your thoughts?
This one's yours.
Well, the design, the tower look, you know, most of our pizzerias, we started, the Penfield one, when I did my brother's, we did it so it looks like half of that. You know, remember the way it looks right now, where it comes up and it goes over? So what we did was, the last 8 stores we built, we made that shape. So our standard right now is, that's what we're building. That shape and just the way it looks and the way it acts fits the dimensions on the inside, so, you know, obviously, that's what I'd like to have. The outdoor seating, you know, it's nice, but, you know, we've had, in Rochester here, we got 3-4 months out of the year that you can use it. So, I mean, I think, you know, I don't wanna put heaters and stuff out there, I think it's nice, I like what Chris drew. I mean, I think it looks nice. It just, you know, by moving the pizzeria 6 feet out, and entering from the north, what happens is, you know, they have to walk in from the north instead of walking in from the middle. We still get to greet the customers on the way in and on the way out, because they have to walk by us both ways. That's not a problem, but there's another 6 feet there of kind of dead space across the front. And I don't love that. So, I mean, the tower, I mean, have you guys looked at the tower? Have you guys looked at the elevations?
Mark, you mentioned the 6 feet, is your, that proposal, is that to the 0 setback as well?
No.
Okay, so
No.
that gives an additional 6 feet then off?
I personally wanted to go back to 6 feet,
Okay,
because I know in the building that we're in now, that it's tight. It's a busy place, especially on Friday and Saturday nights. There's a lot of kids coming, a lot of kids going. So I felt like if I had the opportunity to move the building back 6 feet, I would be creating a little bit of buffer. Now, if that doesn't work, I just like the idea of having a little bit more space because of everybody running around out there. The vestibule gives you even a little bit more space. It's another 5 feet there. So you've got like 10 feet now. Because that road there is just really busy. So if you come out of the vestibule and you're right on the sidewalk, it's just tight. You know, you got 2-3 people coming and going all the time. If it gets real busy, you know how the kids line up around the street. So I like the setback back further. I also liked it because when you come out of the, picnic area and you come around that corner there, you have a little bit more space than if you come out around that corner and then, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is I like the outdoor dining back further from the road. Because if I come 6 feet closer to the road, you know, now the dining area
Are you
is.
saying there's dining on the 5 Mile Line Road?
No,
No,
on
south
the,
side.
on the south
Okay.
side. It just brings the dining that much closer to the road. I was trying to get as far away from the road as I could.
But I think the tower breaks that up. You know, where the tower is, kind of breaks up, breaks it up being so close to 5 Mile Line Road and pushes
Well,
it back.
the tower would be in the same spot as where the building would be, right?
Right. But you've got an area that, so I don't have the exact scale on
You walk
here.
through the tower area.
Yeah, the tower would be open, so,
The tower's not really a tower, it's just It's like a fake tower.
Well, it's a.
Right.
It's an archway to the dining area.
Exactly, it's an opening, it's part of the arcade,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, I
I
mean,
just didn't have the dimension, yeah. You know.
I know, I mean, I like that. That's what I like. I mean, we spent a lot of time working on it, so. I know Chris spent a lot of time working on his. And, you know, if we had another architect and another architect, I mean, every architect, they're all creative and they're all gonna come up with great ideas. It's just, you know,
I just want to say that what we try to do is, in keeping with the spirit of what was presented, move it towards more compliancy with the standards, as well as make it more about Penfield Four Corners. And I respect that, you know, there's a branding that Mark's doing, and we hope that he can continue that branding, but adapt that building to this specific site where we've got this great park adjacent to it. It's a unique site. So that's kind of where, you know, our perspective.
one thing that I thought, maybe as a trade-off, is, do you guys have the drawings in front of you? Do you have the drawings?
I've got-
No, the drawings from Chris?
I do,
Yeah.
yes, I do,
You see how he's got the windows with the transom
yes.
above it? You know, one thing we could do, and I know Chris was pretty hot on the windows, I think maybe if we plugged our windows into his picture, I don't know what you think about that, Chris?
I certainly think the storefront will help. It's the best advertising you can get. I know everybody talks about signage, but having transparency and being able to see into a place is
I
great.
actually like his windows better.
Yeah.
I think it's different than what we do, but I was kinda going with what, after I went to historic
Reservation.
you know, they were kinda, you know, I was going back and forth with them a couple of times, and I was trying to give them, they were asking me for that, and then change this, and so I kinda did what they liked.
Yep.
Now, I wouldn't mind making an adjustment on the windows, because I think it's still kinda, I like the way the windows would look. What do you think, Scott?
Sure.
I mean, I really like, I
He's
mean,
just an engineer.
Well, no, want to talk about parking again?
Scott's done a lot of the buildings with me, so I mean, He knows
I agree,
pretty much.
I like the glass that he shows.
When you're talking about the windows, are you talking about like on this
Yes.
photo?
Yeah.
Yes, so
Okay.
more of a traditional storefront,
Right.
kind of like what's on the southeast corner of the Four Corners, those three buildings. Where
Yeah,
it's more,
And I guess I would concur with you on that, and I appreciate you know, being flexible on that. When I look at this photo, it seems to be a little bit more inviting to me. And whether it's the transparency or whether it's the ability to look inside and see what's going on inside, I just think to me, the word inviting comes out a little bit more. So I would favor that.
I think Mark makes a good point in terms of trade-off, because I certainly think a balance can be struck, but I also recognize Mark is the longtime business owner and
Right.
has certain ideas, and has a right to, you know, develop the property. And I think we're at the point, given, I was present for the Historic Preservation Board review and re-review and input that they put in, and I think we're at the point where we're appropriately tweaking the plan to conform with the guidelines for the Four Corners. But at the same time, we have to recognize Mark's, you know, ability to develop the property the way he sees fit. So in terms of changing the entrance, I don't agree with, you know, unless Mark is willing to do that. Things like windows, the tower, I think is a good idea. More the aesthetic changes, I certainly can concur with, but I also would defer to the property owner as far as where you want your entrance to be.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with Paula on that. I mean, certainly, you know, you're gonna know what your customers' habits are better than anybody. And so I, meaning Andy Moore, would trust where you think the traffic flow is gonna be best and what's gonna be safest and most conducive towards a successful operation. So, I'm not so concerned about the inside, but I just, when I saw these windows, I thought that was a very nice touch to it that just makes it look a little bit more inviting.
And I would offer the same about the outdoor seating. Certainly, if you're, you know, you're offering up a nice joint venture with the town with respect to utilizing the
Right.
park. And if in your, business sense, you decide that, you don't want to have the covered seating, I mean, I think you gave some good reasons as to why that would not be appropriate. That's another issue or area of factor that I would defer to the property owner on.
Chris, if we did change to those transom windows, what would be your thoughts on the north side of the building? Here, where the 3 windows are, they're like dummy
Because
windows?
those, those are not real
I
windows.
think, what we were talking about is having the plaques located there, because that's where your kitchen is.
What would they look like?
I think you could just do a recess in the brick, and have a single light on them and have some sort of a plaque.
Would you guys be all right with that?
That sounds,
So the plaques would go from the south side to the north side, Mark? Is that,
Well, if what Chris is suggesting, the plaques would only be on that side.
From the north side.
should be on the north side? So
The
they
south
come-
side
Right
is
now,
landscape.
the original plan showed them on the south side.
No, the original
No,
plan was
no.
on the north side.
Yeah.
So Chris, you're saying then,
I think I agree with
So-
Tony on this.
so,
I thought
No, they were other.
no, you're talking, Tony, you're talking about the little Nelly
Oh,
plaque?
yes, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the little
These
Nelly.
here- These here are window boxes.
right.
And this was gonna be a glass window box. I think what Chris is suggesting is, we lose all this. This is just a backdrop of brick, but it's drawn like this.
Recess.
It's brick, it's recessed. And it's brick, or it's out further. It might have to be out further because the wall is what the wall, you know what I mean? The wall's so thick, I don't think you can recess it in, right? Because you got a 2x6 wall.
Even if you do it just 3/4 of an inch,
Okay.
just to give it,
A cosmetic
Yeah.
recess.
So this would be a brick background, and then he suggested we would put in here large plaques.
yeah,
Like
and
two
they
in-
could be lit with a gooseneck fixture similar to what you have on there.
Those are long stories. You're gonna have to write a lot, makes it a little expensive.
So I mean, well,
are they going to be in the
the
parking
Little
lot?
Nelly story's a big story.
Jeff Crane's story's a big stuff.
Jeff Crane's story, and then,
Yeah.
like I said, the other one, that would be these two, and then this one would be the different seasons.
Yeah.
Whether it be Valentine's Day, Christmas, or whatever.
Sure.
So I would be okay with that. The transoms in the front, I'd have to talk to, I don't know, would you be working with Carini on that?
Yeah, I
To try to-
think, is it Steve?
Steve, you
Yeah,
guys,
work
I
with
think,
Steve.
I think I would be okay with it, then you would suggest that then this is one big transom? Because I'm thinking, you're thinking like this is one big transom here, or the transom on the top of one big set of windows,
Yeah.
and then a big set of windows and a big set of windows.
I think you want to maximize the view out to the park from the dining area.
But there would be a gap between the windows, you're saying?
No, and I can go over this with Steve, but the guidelines are just based on, you have simple pilasters about 10 feet on center with glass in between them, with storefront in between them. It's really much simpler than punched windows to build, essentially.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like the way the windows look. I mean, if the board likes the windows, I think Jim, I really think that you have to talk to those people at the Historical Society.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, because
I
I don't
think
want to be responsible for changing windows and they don't know about it.
No, they will be fully informed, and actually what we'll do is we'll go back and visit with them and go through this process. And I did send an email to them the other day before I went down, explaining that we will have this discussion tonight. It is on Cable 12, so they'll have a chance to watch that before the meeting. We'll provide them with the material once we get it.
But Chris's additions are more in line to the character of the four corners,
exactly.
which I think is an important point to make with that board, so that they
I think-
understand
And
that.
Paula was there for every meeting.
Yeah.
I think the board was reacting to, Mark had an initial idea. They felt that idea really was germane to Palmyra and not so much to Penfield. They asked him to go back and draw something up. He did. They liked what he drew up because they thought it was more unique to the four corners. I don't think their minds are closed. I think if something else comes in and they think they like it better, they're certainly gonna support it. If they want it tweaked again or something, we'll have to look at that, but I think they're gonna be very open to any suggestions.
Chris, do you like the transom windows with that style of building?
I'm concerned about the single parapet that looks more like a western kind of parapet, just up, you know, there is some precedent for some areas where there's kind of old general store type, with that type of parapet, but it's not in keeping with the storefront kind of building that the Four Corners is, you know.
What if you were to, or what if you were both to be able to take the design that you have, pretty much closing it into a box type setting more than what it is now, where he's keeping his interior design,
Yeah.
but maintaining those sides and the back the way you proposed it without.
Well, the design could be maintained by simply deleting the covered seating
Seating
area.
area,
Your
right.
floor plan could be essentially identical to what you have, and as you mentioned, the exterior could be closer to what we proposed.
I think you were concerned about it becoming more looking like a Western theme than a Four Corners.
Yes.
1890s.
Yes, and that's because, primarily because the parapet that's in the center, just kind of up there, you know, more like a stage set, you
Maybe
know.
we could look at that, because when I looked at it, even without the parapet or the tower, it might have some value to take those kinds of designs that you had without the tower and then incorporate them into what he's done.
I do think though, Jim, the tower helps scale it
It
up
does.
to the other buildings in the surrounding area. I mean, this is a
I
one-story building,
understand that.
and if we can somehow, and it also, I think it's gonna be great for Mark to have that focal point with the signage.
I actually like the signage the way it is, because I think from 441 and coming up the other way, I really like the way that is. The tower kind of takes away from that, I think. I mean, for me it does. I mean, this, on the Four Corners, you can see it from the three directions. I mean, what if we didn't have so much of the, what if we shortened up, what if we shorten this up a little bit
Right.
here?
Right.
And just tighten this down a little?
Well, that's what I was thinking, yeah. But you do lose a lot of the
Because you
elevator
know,
height
if
when
you look
do
from the
that.
side, I mean,
You just don't want it to be a one-story little box.
It's a fairly large building, and I'm concerned if it's only one story, it's gonna feel kind of squatty and not fit with the rest of the buildings in the Four Corners, especially in the center part of the Four Corners.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and may actually appear smaller because
It
it
may.
kind of drops down.
It won't
versus
look small.
Well, more of a pancake. I mean, it'll feel, I think, even squattier because of its length and because of its size.
Yeah.
So the idea is to kind of to visually try to scale it up a little bit by strategically just having a small, one area, perhaps a
I
tower,
like it.
that's strategically located.
Makes sense.
So you're not scaling the whole building up and outlaying the cost to scale the whole building out. You're doing it strategically, just in the corner.
But I wouldn't even mind if you looked at scaling it up, because I do think that it needs to have some height to it. I'm not so certain that, you know, first of all, Mark's not comfortable with the tower, but is there something we can do to the building to scale it up where you don't actually need the tower, but you do bring it up a little bit so it gives it some height?
pointier?
Not pointier, straighter actually. Boxy, yeah, because if you look at the Four Corners, the buildings, unless it's a residence, it's a boxy type setting. I mean, you look at the Masonic Lodge, you look at the buildings on the southeast quadrant, they are boxy type buildings for that period. And this may not look to that period when you get done the way it is now. So I guess my comment would be if you could work with Steve Carini to come up with some features that you like. I know you're thinking about the windows, maybe Chris can work with them about coming up with some height issues and kind of bringing it together, and then we can get it back to the board as quickly as possible. I know we've gotten to the point now where you're not looking to actually build this year. You are looking to the point, though, where you might want to demolish those building, or that one building this year, get that offline, so that when we get this finally resolved for you in the springtime, you can start. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, it's too late in the season to rebuild it, but
Yeah, I think so, too.
do you think we'd be able to take the one side of them down?
I think once we all, theoretically, I mean, you can apply for a demolition permit anytime you want for anything.
I was gonna say, you could do that
Yeah.
as soon as tomorrow,
Yeah,
essentially.
they're gonna start the remediation on September 6th, so I've got an appointment. So the remediation will take a week, so I'd say by the middle of September, I'd like to get it down. And the reason why is, I'd like to get it down, I'd like to get the soil compacted, and I'd like to get it through a winter of a frost and
Yeah.
a frost and a thaw.
Yep, absolutely.
And then that way, all the water going in it, what'll happen is when we get ready to go dig the footers, it'll be
Rock solid.
it'll be, yeah, it'll be a lot more solid than it was.
Yeah.
Did you have a conversation with Mark as it related to the mechanics that we have, or the electrical component we have for the clock?
That's a very good point, Tony. As a matter of fact, I had a discussion the other day with Jim Crackman, he's our electrician that takes care of all these. There is the Carillon system, which is on that fence to the south side of your property. That could stay there if it works out properly, but there's a concern that during demolition and construction,
We protect that.
yeah, we're gonna have to somehow protect
What
it,
is it?
or it could be
Is
relocated.
it just power?
It's the controller that runs the clock on the corner of
Is
the
that
park.
something that could go in our utility room inside the building?
It could, if you, are you sure you really wanna take?
How big is it?
It's a
Bigger
pretty
than a
good
bread
size.
box.
It's about the size of that panel.
Panel, yeah, I mean, it's,
Size
It's
of
pretty
what?
good. I think you'd have to look at it, and I think we'll have to sit down with Jim Crackman and figure out what the best way to go is.
Well, we'll find a spot.
I just
Not
want,
so
I just
certain
want to
we wanna
mention,
do
Mark, that, as you get ready to do the demoing, just, we just want to make sure we're doing, working together so that,
Yeah.
we protect it, whether we barricade it, whether we build, some,
Is that over
like-
by the building?
Yeah.
It's right over by,
Yeah.
it's a box,
Just behind
it's
Yeah.
probably about twice the size of what I would call a transformer, an outdoor transformer that you see, about twice as high as that, but about
And
the
it
same
gets-
size.
It gets fed with like a 20 amp circuit?
It comes across 5 Mile Line Road, and it goes to that box, and then from the box, it goes to the clock.
Right.
It can be relocated if it
It
had to
can.
though. Okay,
It
so
can.
whatever we have to do, we'll do that. So is it safe to say that we're gonna be changing this, pretty much?
Well, I think you should sit down with Chris and with
Okay.
Steve, come up with some ideas that you like to incorporate into it, see if there's some ideas they can come to with a compromise with you,
Okay.
come back with a building that everybody thinks looks fairly decent, and then bring it to this board, and then also to the other board.
Okay.
Well, I think we ironed out the windows. I mean,
Yeah.
I think what I've heard around the table is everyone likes, the windows that were being proposed. I mean, that I think is more in character with the period with those windows, and I think it gives your building that added curb awareness or appeal, if you will. So I think that piece is one that we can kind of tick off. And then I think the other question mark is that how do we address just that top part? If we take a look at it, how do we address this? I think this is kind of the piece right here. How do we address this in a way that fits within what you're looking for? Also is in keeping with some of the things we heard from Chris, not making it look
What
squatty.
if it was just square? Square, totally square,
It
that
might
height?
be,
That's in moving in a better direction, because as Jim mentioned, that's more in keeping with.
So if it were like this,
Mhm.
okay, and I'll tell you, that's not a problem. If you look at Chris's drawings, where I think we're gonna run into trouble is, can I see one of those drawings?
Right here.
Where I think we're gonna run into problems is, not with the front so much, because the front looks beautiful.
It's gonna be on the north side.
But when you look at the north side or the south side, I mean, that's the back, but both sides kind of look the same, and there's just a lot of,
Well, space.
so, I mean, I spent a lot of time with the preservation board to try to, make, because they're gonna,
Mark, if you look, but if you look at that long stretch, that panel at the top, if that doorway is gonna go away on the side, as you're suggesting, now you can eliminate that sign on the corner there and bring the sign as you've got it
Right.
here,
And
which now
duplicate
breaks that area
duplicate
up
that
for you.
And we'll
Let me
also
ask you a
incorporate the
question about the
plaques.
signage.
Yeah,
The
right.
Current code is 2 signs, is that correct?
Current code is one sign.
Okay, so I don't want to assume there's going to be 3 signs on the building yet. I mean, there's going to have to be some discussion on that because we're pretty
Right.
strict with other
Well, I want
buildings
you
and businesses
to,
within
I
that
do want
district.
you to go to the Four Corners Zone, I want you to look at places like Canandaigua National Bank, which does have that, and several other locations. So this would not be precedent setting by any
No.
means.
No, the whole thing is the Four Corners district is different, it's a unique district, so you can play with it a little
Oh, I
bit
understand
more
that.
than you can.
There was an issue with
Other-
Canandaigua a couple of years ago with some signage on their east front, correct?
Their concern was that it was being blocked up by
Visibility
trees in
barriers.
the park. That was the big issue
Okay.
for them.
so, I mean,
Signs on there.
I like the idea of squaring the top off, maybe even not even shrink it, because if it goes up, then it'll kind of hide that return there, is that what you're thinking, Chris?
Mhm.
So if we did bring it up, it's not gonna bother us, I just have to ask Steve, you know, how he ties it around, going around the corner. I just don't know how that works, maybe, do you know, would that just go straight around and
Yeah.
tie into that?
It would just tie around, most likely you're gonna wanna have, when you have such a tall parapet like that, because of the wind load, you're gonna wanna have some sort of cant or tiebacks that tie that, because it's basically acts as a sail. And the way that's drawn now, it's gonna have a lot of wind load on it, so, there's ways that, and Steve's actually a structural engineer, there's ways that
Yeah.
you can tie that back, so.
Well, he's got, yeah, he's got, it's only the two little corners that he's adding, so,
Mhm.
but I mean, I'd like to go to Steve, fill those corners in, put the new windows in, and then come back and see if that's what they like. I don't wanna get,
Absolutely.
I don't think I wanna get too crazy with changing, putting towers in and stuff like that, cause the tower just doesn't go with our look. And I really like to stay to the look, that look started in Penfield with the building that we have there right now. And it's, the building in Palmyra is, or the building in Penfield is this right now.
Yeah.
That's what's there. So all we're really adding is that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair compromise.
Okay.
Going back to Rob's comment, and you all know I'm not a big sign person, I never have been, but one of the things I'm concerned about is because it's gonna be such a different setting there from what people are used to, particularly if you're coming from the north, not so much from the south, because it's very visible getting into that property, but if you're coming from the north and you're not quite sure what's happened, and it's maybe a first or second time for you, it might be good to have a sign on that north face to get people to understand that that is the new Marks building and that's where you're turning
Well,
into.
when we talked, it's Rob, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we talked about it earlier, what came up for me, what I would like to see happen, it doesn't have to happen, but what we had talked about was, and I also talked about this with the preservation board, Penfield High School does a ton of sporting stuff. They also have a lot of tournaments down there. So my thing was, I wanted to have signage on the north side because everybody coming that way, if they drive by, they're gone. Now they've, and you know, once they've driven by me, they take a left, they go to my good friend Guida's, and then he goes right to my other good friend,
Pontillo's.
Dave Pontillo, which are both good friends of mine. But I always say to them, I'm first. I don't want to be second and third.
Yeah,
So-
I don't want you to think that I'm opposed to the
No, no,
signage.
but I'm just
I
saying that was my reasoning
Yeah.
for having it, because now, take it one step further, if they drive by and they don't like, you know, the Pontillo or Mark Guida, then they have to drive around the block, and you know they're gonna end up turning into Dunkin' Donuts or the bank or wherever, and I don't want them to do that either. Not saying that everybody would do that, but I mean, they have to get back, where are they gonna go?
I think the irony though is Chris's proposal for the signage on the north side probably gave you
Right,
greater
it's closer to the
visibility.
road, yeah.
But that's here nor there, and,
Yeah.
and we understand your thoughts on it, but.
But the other thing too is, if you guys really want the building on the road, I mean, I can
It's not-
move,
no, we don't want it on the road. We
There is a sidewalk.
I can
we
move it
want
up
it
to
to be
the
right,
sidewalk.
right about where it is right now,
Right.
actually.
Why
We don't
did-
want you to go any closer.
Okay,
than
why
what it
did we
is.
set the building back 6 feet?
Because we had an easement there that we thought we had to stay off.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
we're gonna release the easement, and we're gonna have a new
Okay.
easement as part of the
Okay,
approval
well,
process. That's not the
if the
issue.
board wants the building on the zero
If-
line,
If
we'll
you
put
meet the
it there.
front setback as to where you are right now, that's what he's looking for. That's what we're looking for. You don't need to
We're zero
go,
setback then. so
you don't
no
need to go
easement.
further back, you don't need to go closer. All you have to do is get where you are right now.
I'm saying though, if Chris thinks it'd be better and you want it up further,
No.
we can
No,
move
where
it up.
it is
No,
right
no,
now
no.
is fine.
Right where it is now is on the zero setback, so.
So
Is it?
agreeing with, no,
We're not on the zero
Where the
setback.
building is right now.
the existing building is
The
on the zero
existing
setback.
Right.
Yeah, but the new building that we've designed is not on that.
We had put it
Right.
back because we thought we had to stay off of the easement.
But you were looking at
Bring it up.
that distance between the pillars and the main wall. And I don't know if we're even gonna have the pillars in the end when we get done with all of this, but assuming wherever that, you know, if it's the pillar would be the front wall.
Correct.
Okay? The pillar would be where your existing front wall is now. So, yeah, the main
Right,
wall
4
would be
feet?
back that.
Is that
3
4
or
feet?
whatever
What
it
is it?
The
I just want to be clear,
The
so I
distance
know when I
between
talk to
You're
Steve.
basically maintaining, wherever the front of that building is, if it's an overhang or whatever it is, that's gonna be the front setback of where you are.
There's a
today.
4-foot overhang, right?
So if you got a 4-foot overhang, then the building starts 4 foot back from
So
the...
where the overhang stops.
So the pillar's on the zero?
Yeah.
Correct.
That would be where your front
Okay,
setback is
okay.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and the
Well, that's why we're
easement,
here.
the easement, as I understand it, was one that wasn't properly
That's right. I think it
laid
goes
out
into the
by
building, if
meets
I'm
and
not
bounds, so we've got to get that cleaned up regardless.
That's right.
And so by cleaning that up, takes that out of the easement.
We have an easement through
So
the
that we
front of your
kinda
building.
balance
I'd like you
that.
to unlock that
We
door.
balance
so I
that.
can walk back and forth in the front of the building.
Before we get about the outdoor seating,
Yeah.
Outdoor seating.
in conjunction with the park, have we spoken with Dick about any legal ramifications, entering a joint venture, or what partnerships need to be
I
laid out?
have actually, I spent last Monday morning with Dick, and we did talk a little bit about it, not very much. And we didn't speak about so much the legal ramifications, because it's a situation as you would have a sidewalk. You know, if somebody gets hurt on our sidewalk, we have to deal with it. Somebody gets hurt in our park, we have to deal with it. We can work out insurance arrangements with him, which I'm sure he's more than happy to do in terms of. Exactly. And then the other issue is really, and this is what we did talk about the other day, is really to what extent do you want him to, what is it you really want him to do for the town in terms of a quid pro quo for the use of the park?
I think Mark's original proposal was very fair.
Well, I think it's gotta be put together in some type of legal fashion, so that, you
Let the
know,
attorneys.
everybody
write that
here is
out.
never gonna live forever. So somebody has to know what happens 55 years.
We'll
from
take
now.
responsibility.
For the,
Yeah.
what, the garbage?
There has
For
to be
the-
some type of a maintenance agreement as
Yeah.
to what he's
Use-
gonna do, what.
It's
what-
shared
what
use
we-
Shared use agreement, I mean,
Yeah.
is
And we're
really
gonna
what.
take care of all the garbage.
Right.
So we've got to start putting that together so that as a condition of approval, we're all in agreement as to what it's going to be, and then we can move
No
forward.
different than a few other shared use agreements that we have, so.
Maintenance,
So I mean, we're not
equipment,
we're not gonna
disrepair,
reinvent the wheel.
Right, and I'm sure
As
Dick
we
has
go through.
formats for you to look at.
Chris, were you thinking bronze mullions or the silver?
We can discuss that. I know Jim has a
Dislike for silver.
dislike for
It doesn't look.
the clear anodized, but
So
there's
we
so many
want-
different options there we can talk about. I mean,
Okay.
You might even come up with that green that's popular, whatever, I'll let you
Yeah.
work that out, but you bring back what you want.
Green, did you say?
I don't like silver. Anything, yeah.
Well, I had
Anything.
I had it drawn with bronze.
Bronze is beautiful.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then Mark, kind of as a side note, what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna be getting your assessment done of what's in the building.
The
you know,
remediation will be done
remediation,
September 6th.
done and everything like that, and then you're looking then to just demo the building and get that down,
I'd like
you know,
to-
over the next month or so.
Yeah, I'd like to demo it, compact it,
Yep,
and then cover it with crusher run.
okay.
And then either, I'm probably going to just put a fence around it, like we talked about, the 6-foot fence, and then just get it safe so nobody's going in there. And if you don't want the 6-foot fence, I'll just make it so it's open.
Oh, that's fine.
I mean, it's gonna be totally flat with clean crusher run.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, you know, the key is that we make it safe. You know, and if everything's gonna be flat level in that area, to add a fence is not something that I see that has to be done. In fact, you know, that might even be an area that you use for, you know, some snow storage or whatever, until you get into your phase 2 of your building
So
construction.
we'll put the safety fence up for demolition.
Right.
And then we'll take the safety fence down. The day we take the safety fence down, I'll have a brand-new crusher put in. It'll be graded flat. We'll take everything out we can take out, and we'll just let it settle, and then we'll get after it in the spring.
And then Jim, you'll work with Mark and Jim Kreckman. We'll just
Yes.
do what we need to do with that unit, just
I'm really glad you brought
during
that
his
up.
construction.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I saw it there. I didn't know what it was, but I know where it is.
Yeah,
I thought it was a transformer.
well, in a sense it kind of is.
It's an awful big box to run a little clock.
There's a lot of stuff in there.
The western element's big.
What's it?
It's a carillon system too. It allows for different songs and everything to be played on that clock. So it's an intriguing process.
Can we put the Marks jingle on?
I I think with that one, I think we've exhausted the conversation.
Always thinking,
So,
always thinking.
all
It's up for
right,
negotiation.
Steve, Mark, thank you. Chris, thank you very much for coming in and following up with that. Thank you very much.
Chris, you got a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. We'll move on to our next item, which is South Point Cove condominium architectural review. Mr. Costello.
Thank you, Tony. In one of our previous meetings, it was requested that Just Sudol from Pastoral provide you with some architectural details for the condo building. He's done that. As I said, I tried to get this to you, but actually, I sent this a while back. Maybe you did get it. I'm not sure. But in any event, he wanted you to see the fact that the building is, basically, it's going to be the same design as the other buildings in terms of the U shape. As you see in the one design, they are enclosing the courtyard area, and they're going to have a built-in swimming pool and several little pergolas, and
Yeah.
that will be a gated area that the public will not have access to.
But it's only enclosed via a fence.
That's right.
I mean, it's not,
That's
it doesn't
right.
have a roof structure. I mean, you got
And-
your pergolas and things, but,
That's correct, and you will have access out of there because the state code requires that, so that in case something happens in that courtyard, you've got
Right.
accessibility out of there. But primarily, that's not the main entrance to the building. The main entrance to the building for them is on the other side. And then secondly, there's also underground parking that will, allow them to have access to the building from their parking area. So this is what they're offering. They want to make sure you were comfortable with it.
Is the building itself going to be gated from the remainder of the
It will.
property?
Yes,
Is it
general
just for
public,
them,
the
not
general
for the-
public will not be allowed, because remember, this is ownership, this is not rental. And their intent is to make it a private setting. How do you take this? Make it a private setting where the public cannot. Now, of course, there is also access easements all over the property for hiking and walking. and
But as
everything.
far as this property,
It will
The
not, it will not be accessible to that building.
But the condominium will be accessible to the apartment.
Yes, it'll be like a little gated community, you could drive
Because
through.
that wasn't really clear when they first talked. It sounded like there was an opportunity for the apartment dwellers to be able to get into the field,
No,
but
that will not be
no,
the
that's
case.
just-
It's the opposite. You'll come out of the gated community and then you'll drive through the apartment complex to get in and out of the process, out of the
That
project.
adds to the price of the condominiums, that special feature.
That's correct.
Like Andy said, the easements are still down by the water.
That's right.
So there could still be a footpath down here.
Yes, and they're gonna go through that whole process on the third to identify all the new access easements.
That'll be part of that,
Okay.
part of the
how
discussion.
many units again, cost?
It was, the building initially was gonna have 39 units as rental. It's now gonna be 24, and I actually have, if anybody would like to have them, I have the floor plans. There'll be 24 units, there'll be 8 units on each floor, so if anybody wants, you're more than welcome to have them.
I'd even give them a 10.
Let me just have, could I just take a quick peek at a set of that?
Well, it's a whole
It's a
set,
whole
so
set,
give them
so-
a whole set. There's another whole set here if anybody would like it.
No, I was
can
just
show you
gonna-
this too. But it's gonna
Okay.
be 8 units on.
And then the other question that I think I know the answer to, but we'll just have it for the record, and that is that the outside of the building is in the same character as the apartments, so that the whole area fits as one unit, and the average person may not know the difference between 8 buildings being rental, 1 building being for sale. But the architectural layout
thinking
would be
that,
pretty much the same.
They're gonna be pretty much the same. You notice in the, it says sample, but you notice that these little patio areas on each floor, I think they come out a little bit further than they do on the apartments. I think they give them more usable outdoor area than they did, but it still fits within the footprint. It doesn't change the footprint from what was initially approved.
With the signage, right, special signage. and-
It'll probably just say
Also-
private area. You're not gonna see any large signage or anything of that nature. It'll
Private
just say
drive.
private drive, and no admittance without,
Okay.
authorization.
Board comfortable with that?
Yes.
Sure.
All right, you close the loop back with Sudol
I sure will.
on that? All right, thank you. That will take us to Dr. Fallone's project, 2146, 2152 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road.
Very good. Two of the outstanding issues in my mind, it looks like everything else is being resolved. is, number one was the stormwater issue, so that we could ensure that we were not gonna be traipsing through that area between
Right.
Mr. Young's property.
Doctor, if you want to come,
And Jeff Benway and John Shields have been working together, as a matter of fact, they were together today again. They have come up to a conclusion as to how to solve this problem. They're going to do it. There does not need to be any removal of trees for stormwater management behind the building. It's gonna be a situation, we're gonna talk about this in a minute, but as a matter of fact, you can start passing this around. The issue's gonna be resolved, so that's good. The other issue that was outstanding in my mind was the architecture, and he had proposed architecture that really was the architecture for what is out on Jefferson Road. I actually, since I couldn't email you anything today, I actually went out to Jefferson Road, took some photographs, ran home, and printed them off my computer, so I apologize for the
wow.
quality. But I wanted you to see all the sides of the building, because he showed you the front, and the front's basically gonna be the front on the 250 side, it's gonna be the front on the interior portion, which is fine. I wanted to see what the sides looked like as it related to what we were dealing with Panera Bread,
Is
basically.
this Chipotle on Jefferson?
Yeah, if you could
Road?
pass them around, if you get a chance, there's a whole bunch of them in there. There is some landscaping on the side, which makes it look pretty nice. That's one of the issues that the PRC is having, is the building size as it relates to the site plan is making it very difficult for him to have any foundation plantings, because it's tight on the pad. And we're concerned that there's not a lot of landscaping within the interior of the project. All the landscaping is basically gonna be behind the buildings. We wanna get some green into the project somehow, so it doesn't just look like a sea of asphalt. And one of the things we're concerned about is getting some plantings on the foundations, and there's not a lot. There is some out there, because they got more room to work with, but we've got to somehow incorporate some landscaping on the foundation, so that you've got some green. It's just not bulk building all
No, I
over the
agree.
place. I will say that I was fairly impressed with the building out on Jefferson Road. It looks very nice. There's a lot of detail in terms of stone and some other things. And I also looked at, he did prepare another plan. I didn't bring it tonight. It might be in there showing some, I didn't bring it because I couldn't print it here from the printer, but it had peaked roofs and that kind of thing, and the more I thought about it, it's not gonna blend in well with the Panera Bread building. And it's remote from Jeremiah, so it's not gonna fit well. I think that this building will fit well with Panera, because it's a little bit more boxy, but this has more detail, I think, than Panera's actually. I did also bring for you, how do I put it? I did bring for you a picture of what the new office building that's coming in before you on the 17th looks like as it relates to, because this building is basically going to be back,
east and south of.
well, it'll be back behind Panera Bread more, and
East and south of.
that's right. So, but I just want to see, I wanted you to see how it kind of blends in with this building.
It's the next one.
That's the next one.
Okay.
So I guess my feeling is, based on what he'd shown me, this plan is gonna be more in keeping. The other plan would have been more in keeping with the four
Yeah,
corners stuff.
the building's nice, it's just that they don't have the opportunity that we do to have green space. I mean, they're right there, it's all asphalt. When they built it, it was put on asphalt,
Right.
whereas we have.
But they actually do have some
opportunities.
landscaping around the building, if you see it, they did put some bushes and trees in.
I've seen
So, I mean, that's kind of where we are. The building, the walls on the side of the building are a little blank, but they're gonna be abutting other buildings as part of that. And this building does not have a drive-through. The building that is in Jefferson Road does have a drive-through. This one doesn't, right?
The Chipotle?
Chipotle here does not have a drive-through for you.
Neither does
No.
that one.
There's a drive-through over there.
There is?
Yeah. There's a road that goes through and around it. I don't know what
There's
it's.
something that loops around.
Yeah, there's something
There's
there.
a green
Pizza.
pizza kitchen.
But I didn't
Whatever,
think-
but there's a
but I didn't
drive-through
think
in
it
that
was
component. We're not gonna need that, so there is the ability possibly to get some type of landscaping in there. I think we need to look at that.
I don't think there is a drive-through.
There's a driving lane that goes through the
Oh, is it?
back.
No, we're talking like an actual drive-through. like
There's a driving lane that goes.
Drive-
No, like a get your food
Drive-through
drive-through.
drive-through window.
Get your food.
It's not a drive-through
No, there's a driving lane next to the building though, but
Yeah,
it's
we're
separate.
talking-
It's
We're talking
separate.
food, you're talking cars.
So I wasn't aware of what it was,
Yeah.
but I was really trying to get a feel for that side of that building.
Yeah.
So I think just the massing of it, we need to look at some plantings, just what you did with Panera. I think
Yes.
there needs to be
Yeah.
something there.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay.
Other than that, I think we
And the stormwater, just getting back to the stormwater management, so that'll be an underground facility.
It will.
And that met both Benway's and your engineer's design and layout, so, okay. That gives more landscaping buffering back to those neighbors to the east.
What in essence
I
is
mean,
gonna
we're not
happen
touching
is,
all, that whole area behind the building.
Exactly.
It won't be touched.
it's kind of, Benway did this for me before he left. Here's the building.
Here's very advanced,
Where's the
but
But it works. Here's the office building that's
Sorry,
proposed at
right
some
there.
point in the future. They're gonna put that in front of the other office building in the parking area. He's going to detain it underground. It'll be discharged to an existing manhole
Right.
after it's been detained, and then it will be brought back to the pond area through the existing
By
system.
Doodlebugs.
That's right.
Doodlebugs was
Yep.
designed to handle everything.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Very good. So, what does that mean?
I think I'm almost there for you in terms of a resolution, but I think I want to see the final details on the underground design, and I want to see some landscaping design around the building, and then bring that back to you as a final component, and then I think we're there.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
And the other component I want to bring to your attention is I do believe we have had the neighbors be very patient with us over the years in terms of getting that landscaping in. I think as a condition of approval, final approval for this phase, we should start that landscaping out on the east side of the building.
Well, I think we
Get that
talked about
done.
that. I think we talked about that at the last
Yeah.
meeting. I think it was indicated that was going to be part of that plan
I agree.
to
And
start
I
that.
just want to make
So-
sure we
For the-
incorporate that
for
in the
For the
resolution.
stormwater and the landscaping, do we need to bring it back to a work session again, or is that something that we can circulate?
I can email it to you, but I just want to make sure you're
Facilitate this.
comfortable enough before I start preparing a resolution of approval for it. that
Well, I
we've gotta
think,
get
I think the
it.
issue, so let's make sure we're all on the same page. I think, the thing that we did with Panera, we had a resolution, and some of the conditions were that they had to come back and we had to give the stamp of approval of the final landscaping. So I think if we do that, and then from the stormwater management component, that's consistent with, the site plan and consistent with what's gonna go through PRC. So if the only thing is just to, finish the design of that, that can be subject to the approval of the town engineer, and then the landscaping component can be subject to the town board at a work session reviewing the final plan.
Yes, you're right, but the landscaping is a little more intriguing here because it's not just putting flowers in the different kinds that you like or don't like. It really is designing the building in such a way that you've got some landscaping. Right now, there's none, and the way the building's set up right now, there can't be
Okay,
any.
so there potentially could be enough of a change that we
Yeah,
have to.
that's what I'm saying. We
Alright.
may have to tweak it a little bit to get to where you can be comfortable in terms of square footage, but also where we are in terms of comfort for getting some green space there. So I need to see that, and I'm not sure you need to see it as a condition of approval. I'd like you to see it.
Oh, I think we
But
need to see.
Yeah, but we need to see it, and we haven't seen that yet, so we gotta work with them on that. Other than that, I really do think we're there, and I think that, I would hope by the next town board meeting after the 3rd, that you could direct me to do a resolution for that next town board meeting, the legislative session, to get the approval for it,
Okay,
okay?
all right, great, thank you.
Sound good?
Thank you,
Thanks.
appreciate it, thank you. Okay, our next item is Panera Bread sign package.
Yes, I sent an email that probably didn't get there, but I sent it yesterday to her, asking when she was gonna get a package to me.
So
before
save the breath, because that tells me it's gonna be tabled.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, request for fence encroachment,
Yeah.
Splendidwood Drive.
Come on up.
So we'll hold this one.
All right, I kind of ended up adopting this project. It started out with Mark Valentine, he's on vacation. So, here, if you could just pass it up here.
This is the,
And you do have the house, I think. I've also got other photos of the property. I'm gonna pass
this
those
is the
around
house
to
that
you.
was just completed within the last 30, 45 days.
Right,
Yeah.
yep,
Congratulations.
thank you.
I took some photographs this afternoon, I went out and looked at it, I just wanted to make sure we were on target. What they're really doing here is they're asking you to allow them to put a fence over an existing sidewalk easement. And I went out and looked at the site, I pulled up the map, they gave us a survey map, and I went out and looked at the old approval of the site plan. The big issue here is, The sidewalk easement is halfway through the yard and it's nowhere in close proximity to the existing sidewalk. I don't know, I think somebody just gave us a bad legal description for the sidewalk. They are entitled to put a fence up. As a matter of fact, I sent a picture around that shows their neighbors to the north actually have a fence abutting their house.
So how far from
That's their house.
the existing sidewalk would the?
Well, right now, they were
fence
looking
be?
at having the fence be about 7 feet from the sidewalk. I'm a little uncomfortable with that for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is close to the sidewalk. We push snow hard, and when we do it, we hit fences, and we don't want to hit your fence.
We'd like to just get as much backyard as possible, so
Understood.
we'd like to just know where we could put that before we start building.
Well, you're entitled, by our code, you are entitled to have a fence around your entire perimeter of your property if you want. The issue at hand here initially was, one of our coworkers misinterpreted the ordinance to think that you had to be less than 6 feet along the right-of-way. That is not the case. As a matter of fact, there's places all over town, and I think with Watson Road, as you go down from Kentfield Road, there's fences all the way along Watson Road. The issue for us was, number one, the easement's in the wrong place. So what I want to do, what I'm going to recommend to the board is that easement be released. The town board will release that easement, subject to you giving us a new easement, which we'll prepare over your property where the sidewalk is located. That takes away the requirement of them having to give you relief to go over an easement because the easement will not be there. It'll be
So they would be in
outside.
compliance
They
with
would
the
be in
easement
compliance.
correction.
My other recommendation of the board, though, in looking at the property, and you see from my views of that, the fencing, it was very rough as it was drawn up, because I understand you really didn't, you didn't know exactly what it was gonna be, but where they're showing the fence right now is about 7 feet from the sidewalk. I'd like to move it 10 feet from the sidewalk. That gives them 30 feet from their side of their house to the fence where it would make that 90-degree turn and head south. So that would give them some backyard. And as I say, when you get to the bottom here, where your backyard, you could fence that whole thing in if you want.
Yeah, we're not really concerned because there's rocks and
Trees and all sorts.
trees. It's more concerning we have a 5 and a 3-year-old that run all over the place, and that street is extremely busy. So that's basically why we're doing the fence. We wouldn't do the other side. We wouldn't do the back. It's mainly to keep them away from Jackson
As they
Road.
say, your neighbors have done the same kind of thing. I think
Yeah.
they've actually enclosed the back of their property
They did.
as
Yeah, they
well. So you have that right, and certainly fencing is expensive, and maybe you're doing it in phases or something over the next
Yeah.
several years. But in essence, that's what my recommendation is to the board, is we have to release that sidewalk easement. Number one, it encroaches into the property where it's, you're not able to use that property for personal space.
Right.
Secondly, we need to get an easement over that sidewalk, and if you look on the survey,
Well, that's at least accurate.
yes, and that easement,
Unusable.
that existing easement goes into the next property to the south, which is gonna have to be addressed as well. So we have to talk to them about doing the same thing at some point in time here. But we do need to get easements over those sidewalks, so.
So I think, I mean, this is just a shot in the dark, and I don't know this to be true, but I think what may have happened, Kaz, is that if you think of the property to the south of this property, it's starting to get towards, as we start making our way towards Jackson Road Extension. And I think what happens is that the right-of-way is wider as it starts to go south.
That's right.
And my assumption is that when they came in to get the approval of the subdivision overall, they just carried that down, essentially recognizing that the potential for the right-of-way down the road, and then the sidewalk behind that. I mean, that's the only potential
You're right,
explanation.
they probably assumed there was gonna be a widening of
Yeah.
that road, and
Yeah.
they took that into account, so we're gonna have to fix that.
Well, and so I guess bringing it kind of full circle, I think the thing we have to do, because this is a county road, we've got to go back to the county and make sure, because the county may have requested this, and we may not just unilaterally be able to abandon it. So we just need to verify that. And then if it is, I don't have a problem with us, considering granting a waiver in there, but we just have to make sure we're not doing something that the county has, directed to be there.
That's a very good point. And
So-
we'll check with the county, we'll take care of that.
Subject to-
Yeah.
All you really need to do, and I guess through all of this, I still don't know what kind of fence you want to put up. Have you thought of that yet?
We haven't even gotten that far.
Yeah.
You are allowed to put up a 6-foot high fence.
Okay.
And the fence has, if it's a decorative side, that has to be facing out to the street. Any post or support systems have to be in your backyard, so.
Okay.
3 and a 5-year-old, 10-foot, concrete, barbed wire, etc. Just speaking from previous experience.
And it's electric.
That's quick.
So what we will do is, we'll start working on getting you squared away with the easements. I will contact the county to make sure
Yeah,
there's
let's
nothing
just
outstanding.
do that.
If they say it's okay to go ahead, we'll release those easements, we'll prepare new ones for you for where the sidewalk is located. And then it's just a function of you putting the fence up where you want. And I would suggest that you go 10 feet, no closer than 10 feet to the sidewalk, because in about 2 years, that fence won't be worth anything if we have to plow a lot of snow into it, so.
Okay.
Just to consider that. I mean, because as we plow snow, if we knock it down, we won't repair it.
Yeah.
Right, that's right.
I mean,
That's a good
and we
point.
don't intentionally try to knock fences down or mailboxes down, but, that is, somewhat the nature of the beast. So just keep that in mind,
We
so
have
that
actually knocked
you
out
guys are,
storefront windows, so-
maintaining.
We've been in Rochester long enough, so we.
Yeah, right.
we
I'm
know.
from Toronto. Right.
So Jim, just for clarification, for the residents, you're taking care of all the easement
Yes.
work. They don't need to contact the county, they don't need to
No,
do any of that.
and I
stuff.
suspect that once we're out there and we're doing the survey work and all that business, they determine where the easement should be. We'll probably put some stakes out there for you to identify where the fence should be with respect to the sidewalk. And I'm thinking 10 feet. So.
Yeah, so that at least they have a kind of a guideline, so.
I think the process would probably be a couple of weeks or so. Or...
Well, the process in terms of us releasing all this stuff, I have to find out from the county if that's what they wanted. If that's what they wanted, we still need to get an easement over your sidewalk. If that's what they wanted, I'm suspecting it's not gonna be a big deal at this point in time, but we're gonna have to talk about that. If everything goes according to plan, you can start looking at putting fencing up if you want to, but it's gonna be subject to us releasing that easement and then getting a new one from you to sign off. So we'll do some documentation to verify that for you in writing, so you know what the deal is, and then we can move forward.
So a couple of weeks is probably realistic. I
Yeah.
mean, if you think about the holiday coming up and everything like that, and, getting to the county, but I would say a couple of weeks would be realistic. Give you a chance now to start thinking about what does your fence look like and all of that, and then we can take care of the administrative piece. And then we can close the loop back, as Andy said, we can close the loop back as it relates to what the county, says or doesn't say. And if we need to, consider doing a resolution to allow, with the idea that they understand that if, we need to get in there for any reason, or the county needs to get in there for some reason that, yeah. Exactly.
My personal feeling is because you're not in a sanitary easement or you're not in a storm easement, and there's no utility there, if the county says they have no concern for it, you could probably go ahead and start putting the fencing up, subject to us working out the details of getting the new easements.
Okay.
And releasing the old one. Agree with that. And you're gonna want us to release that old one, because you're gonna wanna do things in that area at some point in time.
Yeah, we don't want to encumber the property. I mean, the intent is not to encumber the property, needlessly, So if there's something there that we don't need, or more specifically, the county doesn't need, then we want to address that, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay?
Great.
Did you,
Great,
did you
thank you.
move from Penfield to Penfield, or did you move into?
No, we're actually in Henrietta by RIT.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
we both went to school there, and then kids going to school, so.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Take care.
Thanks. Thank you. Have a great evening. Have a great holiday.
That's okay.
Okay, this brings us down to Jim, Bayview Landing subdivision. It's been there for so. Yeah, so I think what, we can remove that from a held item. At this point, this has been a held item. This is the property on Empire Boulevard, Dr. Howitt. He has pulled or does not plan on looking at those plans that were originally submitted. He's taking a look at a number of other options, but those options would be in single-family homes, and would be looking to go to the planning board rather than to this board. So there is no need for us, so we can drop this, Lisa, and take care of that. And we know that we're waiting for some information on 5 Mile Iron Road Cafe, so, okay. With that, and seeing no further business to come before the board, August 27th meeting will be adjourned at 8:45 p.m.